is Andrew Zook, trainer at Wyoming Athlete Development and strength athlete. I just kind of want to touch on a couple things today that we've been talking a lot about at the gym. But first I want to talk about that introduction video. We had a lot of athletes in that video that are going to be competing in the next couple months. You saw Jeremy Kochi, who's going to be competing in Colorado Springs. That last squat was his opener for that powerlifting meet. You saw Erica Rich, who is going to be in a figure contest at the Warrior Classic in Loveland. You saw Russ Wilson, who is coming in here to try to increase his strength after a injury to his knee. And then myself, I have a powerlifting meet, the USPA Worlds, coming up in November that I'm going to be starting to prep for. So that's said and done. Let's real quickly go through some of the gym talk that we've had. What I want to talk about today is DOMS. DOMS stands for delayed onset muscle soreness. Basically what DOMS is anytime that you train your body and you feel soreness, that is DOMS. So what we want to talk about today is what causes DOMS and how can we fix, if we can fix, DOMS. So DOMS is primarily injury to the muscle fibers or the sarcomeres. What happens is primarily on an eccentric movement. So when we talk about eccentric movements, concentric is if we bring a dumbbell up, okay, that's contracting the muscle. Eccentric is when it drops back into its resting position. The opposite of that would be a squat. When you're dropping down into your squat, that's eccentric. Concentric is when you put the muscles together and contract them to come back into an upright position. So what happens is when we do that eccentric movement, it disrupts the function of the sarcomeres and causes inflammation and pain. And essentially that's what the reaction is when you get the soreness inside of that muscle, is that disruption for primarily the eccentric movement. There's been a lot of myths out there, specifically when probably people that were in high school, their coaches would tell them that they had lactic acid buildup within the muscle and that's why they were sore. Multiple studies, that was actually dispelled in 1983 originally. Lactic acid is a byproduct of anaerobic activity. So what lactic acid does is after you do your anaerobic activity, which is an activity that doesn't require a lot of oxygen, so weight training, sprinting, things like that, the byproduct is lactic acid. Lactic acid does two things. It causes pain because it interacts with the pain receptors, and it also inhibits calcium binding within the sarcomere. So with those two things, you'll see is if you do an exercise over and over again, you'll begin to get weaker and you'll get that lactic acid buildup that also creates that burning sensation within the muscle. That's inhibiting the calcium, which causes the muscle not to contract as strongly, and then the pain aspect is the lactic acid going after the pain. So what happens though is after a short amount of time, lactic acid can actually be recycled back into glucose through the liver and the kidneys. We always have lactic acid in our systems, however it doesn't stay in there to an extent to where it causes us DOMS. So that's a myth. Lactic acid has nothing to do with delayed onset muscle soreness. So we talked about the cause of DOMS is the disruption. DOMS typically peaks within 24 to 48 hours and can typically be gone within 96 hours. Okay, it's a painful process, but is there anything that we can do to get rid of delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS? And there's a new study out by the NSCA, and there's a lot of sites in the sites of other research. The NSCA Strength Journal is a peer-reviewed journal, and they had a lot of research in there. I'm not going to go into the research, but real quickly, there's a few methods that are commonly used for DOMS. The first one is an NSAID. Okay, also have cryotherapy, which is just icing the muscle, massage, or you have light exercise as also a thing that can reduce DOMS. So what they found is that using, let's just talk about those four directly, pain relieving medication in the form of an NSAID, you have aspirin, ibuprofen, and naproxen. Those were the main ones that we need to worry about. Aspirin, they dosed up after the exercise at 2,600 milligrams of aspirin. They didn't find much of a reduction in DOMS. They used ibuprofen at a dose of 1,200 milligrams. Again, not a huge reduction. And then naproxen at 1,000 milligrams. This therapy was done over about 24 to 72 hours. Naproxen came out as one of the higher relieving therapies that you could take, or medications that you could take. The other two showed very minimal benefits. So by looking at that just on face value, if you're going to reduce it, and it sounds like naproxen at approximately 1,000 milligrams is benefit. Cryotherapy, which is obviously icing the muscles, showed a very low reduction in DOMS, if any. Massage was somewhat the same thing. It didn't show any type of DOMS reduction. Obviously, we know that massage is beneficial for multiple different ways, but specifically for DOMS, it doesn't actually help with that inflammation inside the muscle. Also, they looked into active exercise, so just going out and taking a walk or something that's very low intensity. And when I say intensity, I'm not referencing to how much energy you're expelling. I'm talking more about if you go in and do squats, the intensity level is under 50% of what you would normally do for a 1 rep max. That showed to be fairly beneficial. So going for a walk or a light jog, something that just kind of gets blood flow in there to possibly help those muscles out, did seem like a benefit. So after all this study and research, they found that probably naproxen and light exercise is one of the better things that you can do, but conclusively there's nothing that'll fix delayed onset. But it's something that we have to deal with as athletes and people that like to get in the gym and train. It's just kind of a byproduct of what we do. So those are just some tips for you on what muscle soreness is. If there's any questions, feel free to email me at wifarmstrong@gmail.com, and we can get those answered up for you. Keep training hard, and we'll see you in the gym.